Hi, in this video we're going to talk about technology debt. What is it and how does it impact your business? So technology debt is a very simple idea. Essentially, if you don't spend the right amount of time and money on tech, you'll have to repay it later with interest. It's a bit like if you go to the dentist, you can either have a filling now or later on you can have a crown or an extraction or a fake tooth. You can either pay now or you can pay later. What examples are there of technology debt when it comes to system administration? Now, there's technology debt in programming. I'm not going to talk about that today. It's the same kind of process. Technology debt in software support is things like not documenting systems properly, running legacy systems into the ground. So there's examples of that where people are still running COBOL programming, and it becomes more and more expensive to find somebody that can actually support it because no one knows anything about it. If you're still running Windows XP, Windows Server 2008, all of these things are going to cost you money because it's more expensive to do the transition. But more importantly is the business costs. In a moment we're going to come to how you can save money effectively without building up too much technical debt. But before we get to that, let's just look at a couple of examples. So say you've got a desktop PC that's 7 years old, rather than the 3 or 4 years that we recommend that you replace them over. So a person using that PC will easily be wasting 5, maybe 10 minutes a day. So let's do the maths. Let's get the calculator out. I had it earlier. So for example, if we pay someone the minimum wage and they're wasting 5 minutes a day, that's going to be very roughly 5 minutes a day is going to be 20 if we do that 5 minutes a day, 5 times 250-ish days that you might usefully get work out of them, and divide that by 60. That gives you just under 21 hours of wasted time. So we times that by the 872. That gives us £181 a year if we're wasting 5 minutes a day when they're in the office. Okay. If they're wasting 10 minutes a day, then it would be near £350 a year. What actually, though, if you've got somebody that's on a higher salary, so they're earning 50, 60k a year, maybe they're on £30 an hour. So 1 minute of their time a day is roughly 4.1 hours, which is £123 a year if they're wasting 1 minute a day. So you can see that sweating the assets isn't particularly effective because all the money you're saving, you're just burning through in people's time. And that's assuming that the computers work properly and there aren't any problems. Because the older the computers get, we have a thing called entropy. So the more different they get as they get older, the more likely there are to be problems. They've got less warranty. The machines are bound to stop working. So it doesn't make a lot of business sense to keep these machines running. Okay? More likely to go wrong, costing more to run. We've talked about cutting corners, legacy systems, not documenting things. So how can we save money when it comes to IT? There are lots of options, but the most obvious one is stop paying for licenses you're not using. So we have a remote monitoring management software and our management tool which audits the licenses. And when people leave, we should be removing their licenses, especially at the moment we're about to go into a recession because of the virus. Almost certainly you'll be, over time, shrinking things down. So as soon as you've got that planned, you can start to remove the licenses because you don't need to pay for licenses that are not being used. Equally, don't buy equipment and then make people redundant. That doesn't make any sense at all. So try and use the equipment as effectively as possible. Now, when it comes to leasing, I quite like leasing, but it does cost a third more, roughly, on average for most businesses, than purchasing products outright. So you've got to know, is it cheaper to spend more money on the equipment by leasing it and put that money into sales and marketing or business development, or pay for the equipment up front? If your business is doubling in size every 18 months, it's cheaper to lease. If it's not, like a lot of smaller businesses we work with, they're not doubling in size every 18 months, it's much cheaper to buy them. Life of a machine, as I mentioned, 3 to 4 years. I want to talk a bit about designing systems at scale because technology has moved on a lot in the last few years. With cloud computing, you can very easily scale systems up and down to meet your needs, but you have to design systems with that in mind in the first place. So recently, over the course of this virus, B&Q's been closed. They've been trying to do click and collect. It hasn't worked very well because what's happened is their website couldn't cope. Their staff don't have the process in place to deal with it, and it's just not working. Had they designed the system to scale in the first place, that would have been a workable solution. So they've now reopened the store. But they've now got racks and racks and racks of products with stickers on them, with handwritten labels, that they're going to have to do something with. I don't know what they're going to do with it all, because clearly no one's going to come and pick it up. But the trick with this is when you're designing a system, so say I was designing the B&Q click and collect system, what I would have done is said, well, look, what can we do to this site? So say if 100,000 people an hour want to use it, what design decisions do we need to make? That doesn't mean that you need to spend that money now, but if you design it to scale, then it can be scaled. If you don't design it to scale, then it can't. Like, think of it like this. A train could take a lot of people, yeah, but if you buy a moped, that can't take a lot of people, and lots of people around on a moped is going to take forever. So if you want to design something that scales, you have to think of what the end is in mind. That's not a great analogy. I'll think of a better analogy. So cutting corners in the design stage can cost more. Now, a lot of people in business don't understand about the iterative design changes that need to be made when you're building out a new product that no one's done before exactly the way that you've done it. So it's quite common to have to do 2 or 3 cycles till you get a working solution. A lot of people mistakenly believe that they design something, they pay for the design, and then it's finished, and then that's working. So it's not like building a house where you design it, you build it. It's more like being Wimpy Holmes, whatever, and designing thousands of houses. You build some, you make your learning, and then you build some more by modifying the original plan. So it's really important that when we're designing systems that are unique for our business, that we understand that we may have to do this process several times. So again, coming back to our B&Q analogy, I would have come up with a site that kind of worked just to show people how it would work. Then I'd say, well, what happens if we want a lot of people to use this site? What tools do we need to make sure that would scale? And the great thing about things like Azure, you don't have to spend all the money up front now because it's designed to do it. And if you want to scale it up, you can just buy more resources. But you've got to have the back-end processes, and that's the problem, is without printers that can print off labels, without a way. So the problem with the click and collect thing, it should have said, right, arrive between 12 and 1 on Thursday and you're good to be ready to be picked up. But because they didn't have that, they didn't have a system the staff could use, they just had like sheets of stuff, go and pick this, stick a label on it, put it on the big pile, and they couldn't find stuff. It just clearly was chaos, utter chaos. But that could have been tested for, obviously no one was expecting the pandemic, but that could have been tested for in advance. And obviously as we start to settle things back down again, a lot more, they'll be thinking, oh, how can we make this tool work more effectively? The big learning here is design the tool to scale as far as you can. So if you're designing a tool for a business and you've got 3 people, make sure it will work with 20 or 30. That might not be necessary right now, but by designing it that way, it will easily scale and it will be more reliable. But do bear in mind you're going to have various iterations of the tool. So that's not money wasted. That's not money wasted. That's the way that software development and systems design works. You try something, you learn, and then you try it again based on the learnings that you've made. That's why I'm always recommending to businesses you buy off-the-shelf products rather than designing something yourself, because they've already gone through these stages. It'll be a lot cheaper. So if you do have legacy systems, you've got Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows Server 2008, Microsoft Exchange, all of this stuff still running in your business. What do you do? Well, the problem you've got is you're going to have to do an awful lot of planning to move the business on. It's definitely doable, it's definitely achievable, but don't make the mistake of thinking you can just switch it over. You're going to have to plan this out very thoroughly, and there will be a lot more downtime than if you'd switched sooner. Partly because people are less familiar with the tools, because they're doing it less often. So a few years ago we were migrating, every weekend we were migrating people to Office 365. Now we probably haven't done a migration in 4 or 5 months. So naturally our ability to do it has declined because we're not doing it so regularly. It's like, I don't know, learning a piece of music or something. You learn the music, but if you don't play it for 6 months, it's hard to remember how it went. It takes longer. You've got to practice more. So it's entirely possible, and my recommendation is that you pay off your debt by moving off these legacy systems. What a lot of businesses do in a downturn is they take the assets they've got and try and run with them, but it doesn't necessarily make sense to do that. This may be a great time to redesign the business so it's more flexible. So for example, if you've still got legacy systems that need to be moved to the cloud, maybe there's cost savings to be made in the medium term by moving this system to the cloud. That's a good investment for your business. Take the money that you would have spent on upgrades and spend that money on moving the system forward. If you get really stuck, you could always move to a virtual system, but again, you're building more technical debt into the system. The key thing is here to make sure you don't have those legacy systems. If you're spending a little bit more now, by not having the legacy systems over the longer period, that will be cheaper. So, I don't know, if you've got more questions, comment below. I'd love to know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to try and share more videos with for business leaders on how they can use technology more effectively to grow their business. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.